And the theme is enhancing transparency and traceability of sustainable value chains in the garment and footwear sector. And I would like to welcome Maria Teresa Pisani, who is Project Lead Economic Affairs Officer on UNECE.
It's a pleasure to be with you today. So the focus of the presentation is sustainability in the garment and footwear industry, and how at UNECE, my agency, with our project, we are actually advancing traceability and transparency of industry value chains, help responsible business conduct. Well, we would say that the most suitable choices and sustainable choices need to be made easier for consumers and businesses. And for this to happen, sustainability claims about products, the way they are made, need to be trusted and need to make reliable. This is really the key consideration around which we have built our project. So if we can move to the next slide, please. Or I can do it myself. Yes, thank you. The project is led by my agency, UNECE. It's one of the 5 regional commissions of the United Nations, and among others, it services a working party, UNCFACT, that is mandated to develop norms and standards for the harmonization and simplification of trade procedures. And to track and trace value chains. So lots of experience within this working party of the UNECE with developing norms and standards for traceability and transparency of value chains. Next, please. And why the garment and footwear industry? As we have seen now with Bettina and previous speakers, is one of the biggest industry, and an industry absolutely with very complex value chains. Production facilities are scattered all around the world, and more than half are SMEs. So, and we also saw how such complexity has added to the impacts of the COVID-19 crisis. At the same time, environmental, social, health risks and impacts are well documented for the environment, for workers employed in farmers and factories around the world, and for our health. And Bettina actually presented just now how these impacts and risks are hotspots along the value chain. So lots of evidence and research on this, and high relevance to the achievement of the SDGs of the UN 2030 agenda. So the what needs to be done, I would say, is clear. The question is really the how. And interestingly, industry leaders, I mean, the business sector itself has come up with a list of priorities. And on top of the list is really enhancing the traceability and the transparency of value chains. It is clear that for brands, for industry actors to make reliable and solid sustainability claims and exercise due diligence, well, they need to know the value chain. This is really a precondition. Next, please. Well, and this is not actually yet the case, because according to a research we have recently conducted, it's only about 30% of companies that track and trace their value chain, but the majority only know about their immediate client and suppliers and do not get the full story behind the products. So transparency and traceability can help the industry itself actually to move on the sustainability and circularity journey. And the industry indicates that that is actually for a number of reasons. First of all, to enhance consumer trust, then to better manage reputational risks and risks on legal compliance, and then for more efficient resources and inventory management. And when it comes to the solution, it is clear that there is a need to go beyond voluntary standards and to move towards a common language and regulation to create a level playing field for fair competition. So interestingly, in our survey, 70% of industry leaders have indicated that there is a need for stronger policy and regulatory action to create such level playing field and incentives for the good actors. Next, please. There are certainly many recent policy and regulatory developments that go in that direction. Now, we heard about it earlier this morning. The EU is working on legislation to advance human rights and environmental due diligence in key industry sectors, including garment and footwear. And there are countries like France, for instance, that are developing legislation for mandatory due diligence across the entire value chain. So with the support of the European Commission and in partnership with the International Trade Center and the ILO, at UNECE, we are working on a solution that is specifically focusing on the need to enhance transparency and traceability of value chains. First of all, we are looking into measures that governments and high-level decision makers in the business sector could take with a policy recommendation. We are working to develop a global standard for tracking and tracing sustainable value chains in the sector. And finally, we are also working on testing how the measures, the approach, the standard developed under the project work with the support of advanced technologies like blockchain, which are promising innovations and advanced technologies to support due diligence and traceability in the industry. Next, please. When it comes to the network of experts that is supporting our project and the development of the project deliverables I just mentioned, we have more than 170 experts that have joined. On the business side, they represent more than 190,000 companies globally. And I must say that the platform of experts supporting the project is truly a multi-stakeholder plus policy platform. So we have experts from governments, we have experts from academia, civil society, organizations, and civil society initiatives, lots of experts from the industry, from businesses, and let's say companies more active in the upstream part of the value chain, so farmers associations. Next, please. The policy recommendation, which is linked to the first project work stream, currently is in an advanced draft, and we are planning to submit it for public review in the coming days. A public review, so open consultation, that will last approximately 2 months. The first part of the recommendation features a set of core measures to support the traceability and transparency of value chains. The second part, let's say, is provides more practical guidelines. It's about implementation. And the third part is a call to action to establish a mechanism for supporting the uptake of the measures and the standards developed under the project. And we are now going to look a bit more in detail these three parts. Next, please. The policy recommendation it identifies a set of measures in 5 cluster areas that governments or policymakers can put in place to support the implementation of the framework. So this look into norms and standards and make reference to a minimum set of data that need to be collected and exchanged among partners and actors along the value chain to do traceability and transparency. It looks into that can be put in place. It looks at measures to advance research and development and scale up innovative solutions. It looks at measures for raising awareness and education for consumers. And finally, measures in support of the establishment of multi-stakeholder collaborative initiatives. Next, please. Looking specifically at the set of recommendations that concern norms and standards, I would like to highlight two recommendations. The recommendation B, which is about defining minimum levels of traceability and the minimum data that needs to be collected to show due diligence and transparency in support of sustainability claims. So as you can see in the slide, this minimum set of data really concern information and data related to products, to production processes, and performance of facilities. And for product, for instance, this is about collecting and exchanging information about origin, specifications, composition of products, quality aspects, other management aspects, and sustainability performance. For the sustainability performance, this is about environmental, social, health, ethics, considerations, and in the implementation guidelines, we provide a detailed overview of actually these considerations. And the minimum set of data and information to be collected and exchanged along the value chain, it is around all the main stages of the value chain, really from raw material production to consumption and post-consumption. And then I would like to highlight another recommendation, which is about reducing the implementation burden, especially for SMEs and vulnerable groups of actors along the value chain, through the use as much as possible of international global standards like the UNECE Facts Transparency and Traceability Standard that this project is going to develop and to establish, and through the encouragement and the use as much as possible of existing data. Next, please. When it comes to the guidelines for the policy recommendation, well, the guidelines that are part of this policy document target high-level government and private sector managers with implementation responsibility. The document really provides practical guidance on how to set up a traceability system and how to support claims and regulatory compliance for sustainable and circular value chains. So in this slide, you can see the key components of a traceability system, really answering the key questions for doing traceability. So what is the objective of traceability when you define a product sustainable or green claim? How you identify what you need to trace along the value chain? What is the role of unique identifiers? How do you follow the path of your product, its parts and components along the value chain? What are the entry and exit points along the value chain? When do you need to do traceability and transparency? And what are the models for doing traceability? Segregation, book and claim, mass balance. And how basically you look into verification criteria and verification processes to make sure that your claim is verifiable and can be trusted. Next, please. In the policy recommendation, you will also find guidance on how, as a company, you can set up an action plan to develop and put in place a traceability system, how you define your vision, your objectives, the activities, the governance structures, how you identify resources to do that, and what are possible outputs and the key performance indicators to measure progress. So it's really like a practical sort of step-by-step approach for putting in place a traceability system. Next one, please. And the call to action. I would like just to mention that as part of the project, we launch a call to action to all industry actors, government, the industry, NGOs, agencies involved in supporting sustainability, circularity of value chains, academia, think tanks, to provide commitments to the implementation of the measures and the standard developed under the project. The call to action is in a draft. And we plan to launch it in the coming months. It's really to establish a monitoring mechanism for the project and to facilitate the exchange of lessons learned and experiences in advancing traceability and transparency of value chain. Next, please. And this is one of the last ones. Just as I mentioned, as part of the project, we plan, as we are, let's say, developing the framework and we are developing the standard, we also plan to test how the approach and the measures we are proposing work in an innovative environment and with advanced solutions like blockchain systems that promise to be interesting solutions in support of sustainability, due diligence, and traceability of value chain. So right now, and we started in January 2020, we are implementing a blockchain technology for traceability and due diligence in the cotton value chain with a number of partners. So brands, manufacturers, farmers associations, standard setting entities to test how the approach works in a blockchain environment. We are doing the pilot with a number of countries, Egypt, Italy, Switzerland, Germany, and the UK. The purpose is really to demonstrate how to enhance traceability and due diligence in the cotton value chain from farmer to consumer in a blockchain environment. And we are also testing how that can work with the use of digital markers like DNA markers to ensure the connection between the physical and digital assets traveling along the value chain. So to ensure that the cotton farmed in Egypt really travels with the certificate and the information about its origin, about its organic characteristics throughout the whole value chain till the final product, the cotton t-shirt. Please.
Could I ask you to wrap up, please? We have to have some questions as well.
Yes, it's just to conclude on the next slide. So benefits of this project, well, it's, I would say, advancing due diligence, responsible business conduct and accountability for sustainability claims, support to more risk-informed decisions for businesses to carry out best practices, and establishing a level playing field to provide incentives to good practices and leading actors, and facilitate, of course, information exchange through standardized data collection. Traceability and transparency are starting more and more to appeal to consumers, while forced labor, child labor, water pollution, CO2 emissions is not. And many consumers, I would say, are willing to pay more for ethically sourced products, provided they can really trust claims about products, the clothing they buy. And finally, just save the date on the next slide. We are going to have the third policy dialogue under the project on 23-24 November. We are now circulating the save the date. It's going to be an online meeting due to the COVID situation. Well, an invitation for you all to join and to get in touch in case you're interested to know more about the project and also to participate and join as an expert and contribute to it. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Maria Teresa.